Shalom from Israel to all of the Daystar viewers around the world. I'm Moshe Bar Tzvi, the producer and founder of Israel Now News. We at Israel Now News are dedicated to bringing you the full story and the truth about Israel from Israel. It's written in the Holy Bible when David said in Psalm 25:5, "Lead me in your truth and teach me, for you are the God of my salvation. For you I wait all the day long." And God says in Zechariah 8:16, "These are the things that you shall do. Speak out the truth to one another. Judge with truth and judgment to peace in your gates. And always search for the truth, and the truth shall set you free." John 8:31. I hope you enjoyed the program. God bless you from Jerusalem. Shalom, shalom.
Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El Rom.
And I'm Erin Viner.
In our top story, Iran was reportedly offered the deal of the century. Senior White House officials have confirmed that the United States, Russia, China, and Germany, 4 members of the P5+1 nations, were prepared to offer sanctions relief to Iran if the hardline Islamic Republic agreed to scale back its nuclear program. France vehemently disagreed with what they called a suckers deal and ultimately blocked it. French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius explained that his country opposed the deal because Tehran refuses to suspend work at the Iraq plutonium reactor or to downgrade its stockpile of highly enriched uranium. Israeli as well as Arab leaders throughout the Middle East voiced their concern over the suckers deal. Erin Viner has more on the story.
Yes, Yochanan, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu responded to news of the proposed nuclear deal, saying that Israel is not the only country in the region opposed to an impending agreement, saying that there are many Arab leaders who are also calling it a very bad deal, not only for the Middle East, but the entire world. Saudi Arabia and other Gulf states have repeatedly expressed their concern over Iran's nuclear program, with Riyadh's King Abdullah asking the U.S. on several occasions to cut the head off of the snake by attacking Iranian nuclear facilities. Israel remains insistent that the reported deal sets the scenario for disaster. Netanyahu has stated that Israel utterly rejects the nuclear deal that he calls an historic mistake.
U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry was in Israel last week, where he strongly discouraged the Jewish state from building homes for its citizens. Calling newly approved construction projects in Jerusalem illegitimate, Kerry partly blamed the faltering peace talks on Israel's campaign of building rather than on the Palestinians' campaign of terror. While standing in what has become the Islamic-dominated city of Bethlehem, where Christians live in fear for their lives, Kerry said, "Let me emphasize the position of the United States of America. We consider the Israeli settlements to be illegitimate." He warned that the failure of peace talks could lead to violence against Israelis. In what has been perceived as a threat, Kerry asked if Israel wants a third intifada. His words were received with such outrage that the U.S. ambassador had to release a statement saying that the United States does not condone violence. Ambassador Dan Shapiro said, "Violence is completely unacceptable regardless of the outcome of the current round of Israeli-Palestinian negotiations." Despite immense pressure on Israel from President Obama and Secretary Kerry to capitulate to unreasonable demands in order to make peace with the Palestinians, the talks are reportedly deteriorating, and PA leader Mahmoud Abbas has preemptively blamed Israel for the failure.
Amid the backdrop of the failing peace talks, U.S. Secretary of State Kerry has pledged $75 million to the Palestinian Authority, bringing the total aid package from the United States for Palestinian infrastructure programs to $100 million. A U.S. official said that it is hoped that the financial assistance would boost support for the negotiations with Israel by showing the Palestinian people tangible benefits. The development follows a report from the European Union that nearly $3 billion in aid to the PA is unaccounted for or misappropriated. Britain's Sunday Times noted high-level corruption in the PA leadership, nepotism, and outright theft as several of the reasons for the missing $2.7 billion. Unnamed senior Israeli officials have asserted that international aid to the Palestinians is often used to directly fund terrorism. For more on that story, we turn to Yochanan.
Aaron, with little accountability for the billions they receive in international aid, Funds meant to feed and build infrastructure for the Palestinian people are being used as an incentive for Palestinians to commit terrorist attacks against Israel. The most notable and easiest to trace is what is known as the Palestinian Law of the Prisoner, which uses international aid to pay the salaries of convicted Arab terrorists. This allocation is considered a prioritized expenditure, meaning that even when the PA cannot pay the salaries of municipal employees or the billions of shekels owed to the Israeli Electric Company, Palestinian terrorists are paid. The stipends are determined according to the severity of the crime. The more heinous the terrorist attack, the more money the terrorist receives. Many Palestinians struggle to make ends meet, but those who chose the path of terrorism are handsomely rewarded by the Palestinian Authority.
UNESCO has officially suspended the voting rights of the United States and Israel. Both nations withdrew funding of the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization 2 years ago after the world body unilaterally recognized Palestinian statehood. U.S. law prohibits the funding of any UN agency that implies recognition of a Palestinian state. After a loss of $240 million from the United States, UNESCO is suffering a financial crisis, but has nevertheless pursued a strong anti-Israel agenda. It recently passed 6 resolutions condemning the Jewish state, with several citing violations that occurred in areas controlled by the Palestinians. Pope Francis addressed his followers at a ceremony marking 75 years since Kristallnacht, known as the Night of the Broken Glass, saying that no one should forget the tragedy of November 9, 1938, when the Nazis sponsored a violent anti-Semitic spree of murder and the destruction of Jewish homes and businesses across Germany and Austria. The pontiff said that the Catholic community renews its closeness and solidarity with the Jewish people, whom he referred to as our big brothers, saying that it is critical to offer prayers to God that the memory of the past and the sins of the past help us to remain vigilant against every form of hate and intolerance.
More than 900 Christians and Jews gathered in London last week for Britain's largest ever Night to Honor Israel. Sponsored by the Zionist Federation and Bridges for Peace, in conjunction with the Knesset Christian Allies Caucus, the evening focused on the trend of anti-Zionism, which is rampantly spreading throughout Europe. Josh Reinstein, the director of the Knesset Christian Allies Caucus, said that anti-Zionism is the newest form of anti-Semitism, and that it is up to people of faith, both Jews and Christians, to come together around the world in order to combat this new form of evil.
After the recent deadly typhoon that devastated the Philippines, Israel was one of the first countries to send help. IsraAid Program Director Navonel Glick said that his organization is working with Christian groups on the ground to coordinate relief efforts for the survivors. Glick said that the Israeli group is using the networks of churches, communities, and connections to administer assistance, and that the Filipino Christian community is a very precious partner, that he is happy to help as much as possible. The IDF also dispatched an initial team to the area to assess and determine the best response that the Israeli army can provide.
More than 1 million Jewish children have been killed by abortion in Israel since 1948. Israel is currently engaged in a demographic war for its very survival as a Jewish state. Imagine what a difference 1 million more Jews would have made for Israel. Friends of Efrat saves the lives of thousands of children every year by providing support to pregnant women in distress. Since 1977, Efrat has saved over 30,000 lives and is recognized as a world leader in preventing abortions. You can play a major role in Israel's survival now by helping us save Israel's unborn children.
And that concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein, and we're here on yet another beautiful day in Jerusalem on our rooftop studio. My guest today is Professor Ben Korn of the Tel Aviv Medical Center. Professor Korn, thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
You know, Professor Korn, you have a very interesting initiative to revoke the medical license of Assad, the premier of Syria. Where is this all coming from?
Well, it's coming from the fact that there's an incongruity between someone carrying a medical degree, being a physician, in this case an ophthalmologist, and somebody who has personally overseen the death, the brutal death of over 100,000 citizens in the country of Syria. When Assad came to power, the world thought that this was a breath of fresh air. We said, this is a man who's tech-savvy, clean-shaven, wears Western-cut suits. Certainly, he'll be the person who brings reform to Syria. And slowly but surely, we're even now leaving aside the issue of the use of chemical weapons. Slowly but surely, we now have documentation that the man has personally seen to the execution, the brutal execution of well over 100,000 of the residents of that country. So that just does not jive with my understanding of medicine, the Hippocratic Oath, and any of the principles that drive us in what I think is a noble profession.
Doctor, you know, you're a very well-known doctor here in Israel. He's a doctor, okay, but is he a real medical doctor, or did he just give himself a doctor as the head dictator of Syria?
That's a funny question, but a very insightful point. He is a bona fide doctor. He graduated medical school in Damascus and then actually did a fellowship to be trained as an ophthalmologist. The people who do cataract surgery, laser surgery, the people that all of us meet in our daily lives.
Well, let me ask you a question then. You wrote an interesting article in the Jerusalem Post that he broke the Hippocratic Oath, and because of that he should lose his medical license. How did he break the Hippocratic Oath? How is it connected, his rulership in Syria, to his profession as a doctor?
Well, the first principle of the Hippocratic Oath, which is one of several pledges that physicians who are newly minted take when they're at the threshold of entering a career in medicine, is primum non nocere, first do no harm. And we have documentation that not only was there slight, casual, or offhand, negligent harm, there was deliberate intent to harm, injure, and in fact, exterminate people in the country of Syria. And as I'm saying, this does not comport with the most fundamental principles that should be driving a physician.
You know, why would he care if he took away his medical license? People are calling to hang him for war crimes. Why would that even bother him?
That's a really good question, and I've been getting that question by email since the op-ed piece that I wrote. Would he care? I think he would, for several reasons. First of all, because as a medical school graduate myself, whether or not he entered medical school in Syria through nepotism and protectionism and family ties, he still had to complete his medical degree. And then he moved on to another country where he had to do the work to complete his fellowship training. I have no question there were many sleepless nights. I have no question there was much study that was invested in the pursuit of that career. And I would even speculate that for the first time in this person's life, who again was not the brother, not the son, being groomed to take over the reins in Syria, this could have been a person who very much looked at his professional persona through this medical training. And I truly believe, in particular, in view of what I've heard from former patients, that he very much attached himself to this particular profession. And I think the statement that we would make would indeed be a stinging indictment that he would feel.
You know, a question that's not really related to your initiative. We have seen hundreds of people fleeing from Syria to Israel and receiving medical treatment here. Why are Israeli doctors helping the people of Syria, which is an enemy state?
I think Israeli physicians really represent the cream of our profession. I came here as an American expat with a bit of American medical snobbery. I assumed that I was coming from the greatest medical establishment, which the United States of America is a great country, and certainly gave me the training that I've now brought to the state of Israel. And yet I've been overwhelmed by the degree of resourcefulness, cleverness, and sheer ethical commitment to take care of other individuals that I've seen on the part of my colleagues here in Israel. We see it on a daily basis with Palestinian patients. My hospital has the exclusive contract with the Palestinian Authority to provide cancer services. Up to a third of my patients are Palestinian, and I'm convinced they get care that is every bit as good as the care that Jewish Israeli citizens receive.
You know, Professor Korn, there are literally tens of millions of people watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
I think a major message that I have for a viewing audience, especially when we see what happened to Dr. Assad in terms of the distortion of his values, is that we must be in touch with our core values, lest we be thrust into a situation where inertia can have an impact on us. Through an organization that I believe you can see here, Life's Door, we do a lot of training of professionals to make sure they are in touch with what it is that drives them, what are the ethical principles of medicine. And if there is interest, through a book that I've recently written, which is about to be published, called Think Like You'll Die Because You Will, I believe that we can use death as a focal point to help us define and crystallize what is most important to us. Compassion, vulnerability, empathy for another individual. I would like to continue this dialogue because I think it's critical that we know who we are so that we can help others.
Thank you, Professor Korn, for being on the show, and thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
This is Jerusalem, Israel's capital city. It's an ancient and modern treasure that is beyond belief. There's a little bit of Israel in all of us. Come find the Israel in you.
Up next, Shining Light from Israel.
You might think you need a monster of movie star proportions to defend your country against extremism and terror attacks. At the International Defense and Security Exhibition, science fiction becomes reality. More than 250 companies have gathered here to showcase the latest innovation in defense and homeland security. Over 15,000 visitors representing 60 different countries have come to see Israel live up to its name, Startup Nation.
I think Israel is the most exciting country because they are developing something, testing immediately in the field. So the engineering from the industry goes directly to the army and can see if what they develop is good or not. And they don't have to wait so long like they're waiting in other countries. This is our advantage. Now, I believe that people around the world knows that when they are coming to Israel, they will find something new.
The expo offers gadgets and gizmos aplenty with an assortment of guns and high-tech weapons to keep little boys and grown men playing for hours.
A lot of night vision, optics, scanning devices, a lot of things dealing with Big Brother. You know, you have the CCTVs and you have the video analytics. But it's interesting to see that you'll have everything from boots to textiles to riot control vehicles, guns. We have a company sitting next to us. He manufactured a product that can detect earthquakes before they get here.
These technological innovations are not abstractions or toys. They save lives on the ground. One such invention is Thermo Fisher Spectrometer, which identifies unknown and potentially lethal substances.
The instrument is designed to be used in field operations, so it's very rugged, it's waterproof, dustproof, it's completely deconnable, so they can take it to a border checkpoint crossing. If they come across suspect solids and liquid materials, it can be used and is used actively in airports for alarm resolution tool, as well as being used by law enforcement when they come across suspicious materials in everyday scenarios.
It is tools like these that provide Israel and other nations with the means of defending themselves against terror attacks and biological warfare. But civilian protection is not without its challenges.
Israel is the best equipped nation in the world when it concerns the protection of its civilians. Is it perfect? No, it's not perfect. Israel is currently facing a greater degree of uncertainty than it used to face in the past, and that is a major concern in Israel because it is easier to deal with the knowns than with the unknowns, even if the knowns are posing difficult challenges.
Israel protects in a few levels. For example, we have the iron protection, which is missiles against missiles. Those protection is on a level of a country, military, that we have to cover the country against those missiles, against those attacks. All together is a package deal. Intelligence against technology against missiles, technology to protect families in their home. Like what you can see here in the exhibition, this is what we have to do.
It is often said that offense is the best defense, but on the international stage, when freedoms are threatened with extremism, an exhibition like this proves defense is the best form of attack.
Anywhere else, this would be a vacation by a lake. But this is the Sea of Galilee. The wonders of Israel are beyond belief. There's a little bit of Israel in all of us. Come find the Israel in you.
Please stay tuned for the ICEJ report from the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem.
There is a great need in Israel today, whether it's Holocaust survivors, youth at risk, or new immigrants. Our vision is to build relationships, to foster reconciliation, and to reach out with God's love by responding to the social needs that come across our desk every single day. Through the projects that we do, we hope to provide a better future for the people of Israel and to reach out with hope to those who need it most.
Already for more than 30 years, the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem, is reaching out all over the land, from the north to the south, from the east to the west, to reach those people that are in need. And these people are, of course, the Jewish people who live in this land. But we've also been reaching out to the Christian Arab, to the Muslims, to the Bedouin, and to the Druze that are part of the population of Israel. The ICJ has the incredible privilege to be part in the establishment and also the ongoing expansion of the assisted living community for Holocaust survivors in Haifa. Not only find aging survivors a home, but the Christian support and involvement has touched their lives deeply and is giving them new hope.
I'm very happy when I see people who come, Christians from around the world who come to visit us. They're interested in how we live and they help us. I'm very happy when I see them. It reminds me of my youth. It does something good to my soul. It makes me very happy and I appreciate those who come. They truly deserve a thank you from the Jewish people, to know that there are still good people in the world.
We've been engaged in educational programs and vocational training that enables young people, women, and minorities to get the tools that they need to have a better future and to break out of the cycle of poverty.
Do you know what does it mean to be an educated person in the Ethiopian community? It's a big professor. They saw their expectation is they can change their whole life. Here, we come here, the reality is different. You have to be educated one, to manage your family and to grow your children, to be successful, to keep the country.
I want to study, not all the time, but I want to get to the stage where I know everything. And there is no such stage.
We've been excited to reach out to the children of Israel through various projects. 2 of them were children's homes, where the kids who live in these homes have been removed from their own families for various reasons. Could be because they're orphaned, or they went through some sort of trauma, or other family difficulties. But the first home, the dormitories were in very, very bad disrepair, and we were able to remodel this home and make it a wonderful living space for the children. And in the other, the children had no place to play, and so we were able to put in a new playground for them and help them just rediscover the joys of their childhood.
You just learned about some of the projects the International Christian Embassy is carrying out here in Israel. And I want to personally invite you to partner with the Christian Embassy to bless the Jewish people like never before. We are your embassy here in Jerusalem, and may the Lord bless you greatly out of Zion.
Those who dreamed about the Jewish state, those who wrought the historical miracle and against all odds established a state, those who arrived in the homeland to their new home, those who propelled Israel forward step after step.
I have no doubt that this expanded partnership with our many Christian supporters will greatly strengthen Israel in the years ahead. And I want to thank you all for being part of that historic effort and that historic partnership. May God bless all of Israel's friends throughout the world. May God bless you.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El Rome.
And I'm Erin Viner, reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Please join us next week for all your Israel updates.